The courtroom went dead silent as Sean Diddy Combs walked in, handcuffed, in a suit instead of jail uniform, flashing a heart symbol to his family. The same man who partied with presidents now faced decades in prison, and the woman about to destroy him, his pregnant ex-girlfriend, ready to expose secrets he'd killed to keep hidden. His once jet black hair is now iron gray from months behind bars. Sean Diddy Combs, a hip-hop icon who had seemingly lived a charmed life, was now just another defendant, watching his empire teeter on the brink. In the witness stand stood his former girlfriend, Casandra Cassie Ventura, visibly pregnant and visibly resolute, preparing to unveil the secrets she'd kept buried for years. The contrast was chilling, a superstar turned accused predator, a former lover turned star witness. Picture the scene. Diddy, in a crisp suit instead of his jail uniform, even managing a smile and a heart gesture to his family as U.S. Marshals escorted him in. A surreal flash of showmanship that did nothing to soften the gravity of what was to come. Everyone knew Diddy as the flashy mogul, the hitmaker behind countless anthems. But tonight, you're about to hear the side of the story he never wanted out. It felt like the climax of a blockbuster thriller. Only this was painfully real. How does a man go from music royalty to facing decades in prison? The answer unraveled in a series of courtroom revelations so shocking that spectators and jurors alike were left speechless. And as the first witness spoke, it became clear. This trial would expose a nightmare lurking behind the glittering facade. But what happened next would leave even the judge speechless, because Diddy's team made one fatal mistake no one saw coming. The courtroom bombshell. The trial's opening hearing hit like a grenade of truth, blasting apart the carefully crafted image Sean Combs had built over decades. Prosecutors wasted no time laying out the stakes. Combs is accused of sexually assaulting, trafficking, and exploiting multiple women over the span of decades. He faces a barrage of federal charges, from racketeering to sex trafficking by force to transporting women across state lines for prostitution. In plain terms, they allege he ran a decades-long campaign of abuse, treating women as his personal property and committing acts so severe they go far beyond any notion of party life or consensual fun. This isn't tabloid gossip or a civil lawsuit he can pay away. It's a criminal trial, and his freedom is on the line. Inside that courtroom, the legend of Diddy gave way to stark reality. The first day alone produced jaw-dropping testimony. Jurors heard from a hotel security officer who responded to an emergency call in 2016, a woman in distress in a Los Angeles hotel suite. That woman was Cassie. Prosecutors even played a security video from that night, footage allegedly showing Diddy in a violent rage, chasing Cassie down a hallway. In the grainy video, he's seen attacking her, a scene so disturbing that Diddy's own lawyers fought hard to keep it out of evidence. The tape showed smashed glass and chaos. Jurors were later shown photos of the room's damage, including a broken door and shattered items, proof of a rampage behind closed doors. This was a bombshell piece of evidence. The world-famous artist caught on camera being anything but the suave gentleman his fans knew. But that wasn't all jurors heard on day one. In a voice quivering with emotion, the hotel security manager described finding Cassie bruised and terrified after that incident. And then came testimony from a man who stunned the courtroom. A male escort named Daniel Phillip testified that he had been paid to have sex with Cassie while Combs watched. Yes, you heard that right. The music mogul, one of the richest entertainers alive, allegedly hired other men to perform sexual acts with his girlfriend as he looked on from the shadows. You could feel the shockwave ripple through the room at this revelation. Could this really be the same Diddy who danced in shiny suits on MTV? It sounded like something out of a dark crime drama. But Phillip's next revelation would haunt the jury forever, because Diddy didn't just watch these acts. He demanded something far worse. The bombshell hearing had effectively ripped the lid off Diddy's double life. It became painfully clear that the smiling celebrity waving to fans outside the courthouse masked a far darker persona within. Still, as explosive as that first day was, it was merely setting the stage. Behind these initial shocks lay a pattern, a whole web of deception and control, spanning years. To understand the true depth of this saga, the jury and the world had to grapple with how meticulously Combs had hidden his alleged crimes for so long. And so, as day one closed, one question loomed. How did he get away with it all these years? The next chapter of this trial would begin to answer that, revealing a pattern of deception that was as elaborate as it was disturbing. Diddy's pattern of deception. From the outside looking in, Sean Diddy Combs appeared to live a life of excess and triumph, platinum records, champagne parties, and a media empire. But according to prosecutors, there was another side to him. In their opening statements, they sketched a portrait of a man who thrived on control and secrecy. To the public, he was Puff Daddy or Diddy, a cultural icon, a businessman, larger than life. But there was another side, one prosecutor warned. That other side was a manipulator and abuser hiding behind the smoke and mirrors of celebrity. The trial has pulled back the curtain on how Diddy allegedly deceived everyone, from the women in his life to the public at large, to keep his dark activities hidden. How did he hide it? With endless resources and a loyal inner circle, Combs surrounded himself with people whose job was to protect his image at any cost. Prosecutors revealed that after that 2016 hotel incident, Diddy's team went into overdrive on damage control, doing everything they could to bury the evidence. In fact, Combs allegedly tried to bribe a hotel security guard to hand over the incriminating surveillance tape, first flashing a wad of cash on the spot and eventually forking over a brown paper bag stuffed with $100,000 to secure the video. There was even a signed agreement to keep that guard silent after the payoff. Imagine the brazenness. A superstar effectively attempting to erase an assault with a stack of $100 bills. And it worked. For a while. The public never saw that footage back then. This was part of Combs' playbook, prosecutors say. Hush money, NDAs, intimidation, anything to maintain the illusion that nothing was wrong. Woven into his personal relationships too. Cassie's story, now coming out in full, shows how he allegedly controlled the narrative of their decade-long relationship. In the early days, he was her mentor and boyfriend promising a music career. Behind closed doors, he was an increasingly controlling presence who isolated and manipulated her. Cassie testified that if she didn't answer his texts immediately, he would have his staff hunt her down to find out where she was. He tracked her every move, classic coercive control. Over time, she said, she saw a different side of Combs. He became controlling, she recounted simply, a chilling understatement for what would follow. He also dangled her dreams in front of her. Cassie recorded hundreds of songs, 9 whole albums worth, under Diddy's wing, but none of it was ever released. Instead, as she put it, the bizarre sex freak-offs he orchestrated practically became her job. Imagine being a rising singer and finding that your mentor boyfriend cares more about scheduling perverse parties than your debut album. It was a deception on a deeply personal level, keep her hoping for stardom while exploiting her body and mind. And it wasn't just Cassie. Prosecutors say Diddy's pattern was systemic. He enlisted employees to procure drugs and find him new sexual playthings. His personal assistant will testify, they promise, that he even forced himself sexually on her, one of his own staff. Others were ordered to arrange or participate in lurid acts and to keep their mouths shut about it. To enforce loyalty, Combs allegedly employed classic mob-like tactics, threats, and fear. The prosecution claims he once had a man's car set on fire over a dispute and even dangled a woman over a balcony to terrorize her. These shocking anecdotes paint a picture of someone who would do anything to maintain control, both of the people around him and of his public image. His wealth and fame weren't just for luxury. They were tools to cover up crimes and buy silence. Yet for years, none of this reached the public. Diddy continued smiling on red carpets, tweeting positive vibes, and denying any wrongdoing whenever rumors surfaced. His lawyers now echo that refrain, claiming these women were capable, strong adults who freely consented to all of it. They argue that what happened behind closed doors were just private sexual preferences between consenting adults, nothing criminal. But as we'll see, those claims are crumbling under the weight of witness after witness. Hearing the raw testimonies, ask yourself, would you call that consent? Would you call it consensual to be groomed, beaten, and coerced until your entire life revolves around pleasing one man? The facade of Diddy's innocence, propped up by years of lies and legal maneuvering, is finally cracking. And once his victims started speaking their truth, the full scope of his alleged abuse came into shocking focus. Then came the heart of the trial, the witness testimonies, and they were nothing short of devastating. Cassie Ventura took the stand, and the courtroom collectively held its breath. This was the first time the world would hear her full story in her own words, under oath, after years of whispers and half-told tales. What she described was a personal hell that starkly contradicts any notion of her willing participation. As she began to recount the details, Cassie's voice trembled and tears glistened in her eyes. She spoke of the freak-offs, Combs' twisted term for the multi-day sex marathons he forced her into. These weren't normal consensual encounters or even mild fantasy. They were carefully orchestrated debauchery. Picture this: a baby pool laid out in a hotel room filled with slippery baby oil, where strangers and hired escorts were made to indulge in graphic sex acts while Combs watched from the sidelines. According to Cassie, they'd slather oil over each other, so much that it had to be reapplied every 5 minutes, leaving the room coated in slick residue. One hotel charged them extra for the damages. In fact, Cassie recalled an instance where a hotel had to redecorate the entire room afterward because it was left in such a state. Could you imagine sitting in that courtroom, hearing such a thing described in calm detail? It was the kind of excess that sounded unimaginable, like some hedonistic scene from a movie. Yet it was her life. Cassie testified that these freak-offs happened almost every week for years. They often lasted 2 or 3 days straight, sometimes up to 4 days. There was no sleep for her during these marathons. Instead, she was kept awake with cocktails of cocaine and ecstasy provided by Combs himself. The drugs were the only way to physically endure the ordeal. Even so, she said, she felt disgusted and humiliated by every session. She didn't want to participate every time. Far from it. But I didn't want to disappoint him, she cried, explaining why she kept going along with it. She felt trapped. I felt like I didn't have anything else going for me, Cassie admitted on the stand, tears streaming as she relived the shame. This wasn't a woman describing adventurous consensual sex. This was a survivor detailing how she coped with systematic abuse. She even recalled how Combs would belittle her if she hesitated, calling her predictable, when she dared say she didn't want yet another freak off. But here's the smoking gun no one expected. Diddy filmed everything, and that footage is now in the FBI's hands. The jury saw a young woman who had been conditioned to comply at any cost. Her identity slowly eroded until pleasing Combs was her sole purpose. Cassie Ventura raises her hand to take an oath in court, visibly pregnant and emotional as she prepares to testify. And then there was the violence. Cassie recounted a pattern of physical abuse that left everyone in the courtroom shaken. In a flat, matter-of-fact tone, perhaps the only way she could get through it, she listed what he had done to her: being knocked down, dragged by her hair, kicked, even stomped on the head. How often? Frequently, she said. A single word that landed like a punch in the gut. She described suffering black eyes and bruises all over her body regularly during those years. One especially harrowing incident came to light. Prosecutors said that once, after Cassie dared to date someone else, Diddy flew into such a jealous rage that he beat her brutally, flinging her around like a rag doll. The implication was clear. If he even suspected losing control over her, his response was explosive violence. Cassie is expected to testify about one such final assault in 2018, essentially an act of revenge after their relationship ended and she tried to move on. Could you imagine the terror of enduring this behind closed doors, all while smiling for the cameras in public with him? That question hung unspoken in the air as Cassie detailed injury after injury. Her testimony painted a picture of absolute domination. A woman psychologically and physically beaten into submission, far from the free choice Diddy's defense team keeps talking about. Yet, unbelievably, the horror didn't end there. As Cassie stepped down, other witnesses stepped up, each adding a new layer to the nightmare. Daniel Phillip, the male escort we heard from on day one, continued his testimony, and it only got more shocking. He explained how he first got involved. He was hired under false pretenses, thinking he'd be performing at a party, only to find out the party was just him and Cassie in a hotel room. Cassie greeted him in lingerie and nervously asked if it was okay that it was just the two of them. Moments later, a mysterious man emerged from the shadows, face hidden under a white robe, a bandana covering everything below his nose, and a cap pulled down low. At first, Philip didn't know who the man was supposed to be. But then the figure spoke, and he instantly recognized the voice. It was Sean Combs. Diddy had literally disguised himself so he could lurk in the room and watch his girlfriend have sex with a stranger. The absurdity and creepiness of the scenario are hard to overstate. A millionaire superstar playing voyeur in a mask, as if staging some twisted pornographic theater. Philip went on to describe what happened that night. He and Cassie proceeded to have sex while Combs looked on, even filming and participating in a sex act on himself as he watched. When it was over, Cassie handed Philip several $1,000s in cash, payment for his services, arranged by Combs. Diddy then coolly asked Philip if he'd like to do this again sometime and took his phone number before he left. This became a routine. Philip testified that he met up with them for similar encounters not just once, but on multiple occasions, at 2 different hotels, at Diddy's home, even at Cassie's residence. Each time, the pattern was the same. Curtains drawn, secrecy paramount, Diddy orchestrating everything. It was like Combs had a personal playbook for these perverse sessions, and Philip was just another instrument in his repertoire. But the most shocking part of Philip's account was yet another episode of violence. He recounted one encounter that took a dangerous turn. Cassie was at her computer when Combs called for her to join them. She responded, "Hold on a second." A simple hesitation. Diddy exploded. Philip remembers a bottle suddenly whizzing past Cassie's head and smashing into the wall. In the blink of an eye, Combs was on Cassie, dragging her by her hair into another room while she screamed. Philip stood there, stunned and unsure what to do, as the door slammed. The courtroom sat riveted as he described hearing the chaos from the other side of that door. And then, the chilling detail. According to Philip, when Combs finally re-emerged, he didn't apologize or end the night. Instead, Combs allegedly tried to continue the freak-off right where it left off, as if nothing had happened. The implication was clear. Violence was just part of the normal order for Combs. He expected Philip and Cassie to simply carry on with the sexual encounter after he'd taught her a lesson. It's hard to fathom the mindset that would allow someone to pivot from brutal assault back to sex party mode in minutes. Philip's testimony corroborated Cassie's in crucial ways. It showed Combs' need for dominance, his hair-trigger temper, and the utter lack of genuine consent or concern for Cassie's well-being. The defense tried to chip away at Philip's credibility, asking if Cassie and he ever met up without Diddy present. They did not, and implying maybe Philip caught feelings for Cassie. He admitted he would have dated her if given the chance. But those efforts landed weakly. The core facts remained unshaken. Diddy had engineered these nightmarish scenarios and terrorized Cassie in front of a witness. By the time these shocking witness testimonies were done, the portrait of Combs was no longer that of a charismatic playboy pushing the envelope of consensual kink. It was that of a tyrant who used people like toys and discarded their humanity at will. The jurors had heard enough to piece together a timeline of terror stretching back years, and beyond the individual incidents, a narrative was forming. This wasn't an isolated incident or two. It was a sustained pattern of sexual abuse and violence hidden behind money and fame. Each witness was like a puzzle piece clicking into place, revealing a very ugly big picture. And speaking of the big picture, this case was about more than just one man and one woman. It was becoming a referendum on power, fame, and accountability. The legal drama unfolding was not only bringing long-buried truths to light, it was triggering a cascade of consequences that reached far outside the courtroom walls. Legal dominoes falling. As Cassie and others bravely unspooled their stories, you could practically see the legal dominoes falling, one after another, that led to this moment. In fact, this trial is the culmination of a chain reaction that started years ago. It all began when Cassie decided to break her silence. After enduring over a decade of trauma, she finally came forward in 2023 with a bombshell federal lawsuit against Combs. That lawsuit hit the industry like an earthquake. For years, there had been murmurs about Diddy's treatment of women, whispers in gossip columns, an unsettling anecdote here or there, but nothing concrete. Cassie's 2023 lawsuit changed everything. In painstaking detail, it laid out allegations of rape, beatings, forced encounters with male sex workers, and relentless psychological abuse. It was, in essence, the same story we're hearing now in criminal court, only initially it was a civil case, one woman finding the courage to say, "Enough." That single act of speaking up set off a chain reaction. Almost immediately, other women began to emerge from the shadows. Some had stories from recent years, others dated back decades. Combs, now 55, had been a powerful figure since the early 1990s, and it turned out Cassie may not have been the first or only alleged victim in his past. Encouraged by Cassie's example and empowered by a changing legal landscape, more accusers raised their voices. In New York, a newly enacted law called the Adult Survivors Act had opened a special one-year window, allowing survivors of sexual abuse to file lawsuits even if the statute of limitations had long expired. But Diddy had a secret weapon to beat this law, until one whistleblower risked everything to stop him. Giving people a chance to seek justice for assaults that happened years or even decades ago when they were too afraid or unable to act. As the window approached its deadline in late 2023, a wave of filings hit the courts. Among them were at least 2 women who filed suits accusing Diddy of sexual assaults from the early 1990s and early 2000s. Horrific incidents that, without the Adult Survivors Act, would have been too old to prosecute or sue over. In other words, a door that had been bolted shut by time was suddenly flung open, and out poured the ghosts of Diddy's past. These legal dominoes fell rapidly. Within weeks of Cassie's lawsuit, Combs faced multiple civil suits from different eras of his life. The pattern was disturbingly similar: allegations of drugging, rape, physical abuse, and intimidation. It was as if a dam had broken. After years of silence, the truth was flooding out, one court filing at a time. The public watched in shock as one of the entertainment world's titans appeared to be imploding under the weight of scandal. But if Combs thought he could manage these as mere lawsuits, perhaps settle them quietly, as he attempted to do, he was gravely mistaken. In a twist he likely did not anticipate, the civil allegations sparked the interest of federal law enforcement. The FBI and federal prosecutors started digging in, connecting the dots and interviewing witnesses. Each civil suit was like a breadcrumb leading investigators to a larger criminal enterprise. On a September morning in 2024, the dominoes reached critical mass. Federal agents showed up with handcuffs, and Sean Combs was arrested. The charges announced were sweeping. This was no simple assault case. Prosecutors accused him of running a sex trafficking ring, treating women like property across state lines, along with multiple counts of sex trafficking by force or coercion, and multiple counts of transporting individuals across state lines for prostitution. Essentially, they accused Diddy of running something akin to a personal sex trafficking ring. Racketeering, commonly used to take down mob bosses, indicated they viewed him as the kingpin of a long-running operation of abuse and cover-ups. It became clear that the U.S. Justice Department was treating this very seriously, not as gossip fodder, but as organized crime. Combs was denied bail, judging by the fact he's been in custody since, or chose not to post it. Either way, he spent months in a Brooklyn detention center awaiting trial, his power finally checked by the law. Think about the domino effect here. If Cassie hadn't spoken up, would any of this have happened? Perhaps not. Her bravery galvanized others. Those others, combined with the new law, brought an avalanche of legal pressure on Combs. That pressure, in turn, led federal prosecutors to launch a full-scale investigation, uncovering even more and culminating in a criminal trial. One domino tipped the next, until the mighty figure at the top fell. In the course of months, Sean Combs went from music mogul and businessman, hosting parties and making deals, to an accused criminal fighting for his freedom in court. And now here we are, witnessing those dominoes hit the ground. The legal system, slow for so long in catching up to him, is now in full swing. What we're seeing in this trial is the result of an extraordinary moment in time. Survivors empowered by each other and by new laws, prosecutors with the resolve to take on a celebrity, and a culture that is finally ready to confront ugly truths. Each testimony in court is not happening in isolation. It's part of that larger cascade of accountability. And as these dominoes fall, they're sending a clear message that resonates far beyond this case. Zoom out from the courtroom drama, and it becomes evident that this trial is about more than just Sean Combs and Cassie Ventura. It's a high-profile chapter in a much larger story about power, abuse, and a shifting culture of accountability. In recent years, society has been reckoning with the misdeeds of powerful men, from Hollywood producers to world-famous musicians. The Me Too movement shook the film industry, and now a similar spotlight is shining on the music world. The allegations against Diddy are shocking in their own right, but they also beg the question, how many others have gotten away with similar behavior under the cloak of celebrity? The bigger picture here is a cultural wake-up call. If even Love Diddy, a man who reinvented himself with names like Puff Daddy and preached positivity in public, could harbor such darkness, what does that say about the nature of unchecked celebrity power? One aspect of this bigger picture is how the legal system is evolving to meet these challenges. The Adult Survivors Act we mentioned earlier is a prime example. Laws like that didn't come from nowhere. They were a response to countless survivors saying, "We never got our chance at justice." In New York, more than 3,000 civil suits were filed during the ASA's one-year window, targeting alleged abusers across industries, from entertainment to politics. Diddy was among the most famous names caught in that wave. The law recognized that sometimes it takes years, even decades, for survivors to process what happened and feel safe enough to speak. Cassie herself was a young woman when the abuse happened and is now in her 30s coming forward. The bigger picture is that our society is starting to listen to survivors on their own timeline, not the abuser's timeline. It's a profound shift. The expiration date for silence is being tossed out, and voices long stifled are finally being heard. This trial also forces us to confront the complicity that fame can breed. Diddy didn't operate in a vacuum. He had executives, friends, lawyers, and hangers-on all around him. The prosecution has highlighted how his businesses and staff served as an extension of his will. Think about the number of people who had to turn a blind eye, or were actively involved, for this to go on frequently, for years. Bodyguards who stood outside hotel doors, assistants who procured drugs and signed NDAs, executives who helped smear or pay off accusers. This implies a culture of complicity. The bigger question is, how did so many people allow this to continue? It's the same question we've asked in other scandals, be it Harvey Weinstein or R. Kelly. The pattern is eerily familiar. A powerful figure surrounded by yes men and yes women who enable the abuse to protect the brand, the money, the fame. This case is putting that dynamic on trial as well. It challenges us to reconsider hero worship and celebrity indulgence. Just because someone is a brilliant artist or wealthy entrepreneur, should we ever have looked the other way at signs of trouble? Asset of the bigger picture is the courage and resilience of survivors. It takes immense bravery to stand up to a powerful abuser, especially one with Diddy's level of influence. Cassie's testimony, and those of the others, could inspire a new wave of accountability. Could there be other victims of other celebrities watching this thinking, if she can do it, maybe I can too? Very possibly. Every high-profile case like this chips away at the fear that keeps victims silent. It also serves notice to abusers. Your fame won't shield you forever. Somewhere, someone you hurt might find their voice, and then the world will come to see you for who you really are. And ultimately, the big picture comes down to a simple concept. No one is above the law. It sounds cliché, but for too long, it felt like mega celebrities were above the law. They were untouchable. Scandals would come and go, but rarely did legal consequences stick. Now that's changing. We've seen billionaire movie producers in jail, chart-topping singers convicted, and now a music mogul facing the possibility of decades in prison if found guilty. This trial is a symbol, a signal that society will hold even its superstars to account when there's evidence of grievous wrongdoing. It's both a tragic story of what allegedly happened and an optimistic story of long-delayed justice finally catching up. The bigger picture asks us, the public, to reevaluate how we idolize celebrities and to empathize with those they may have hurt. Because in the end, those victims could be anyone, a friend, a family member, and their suffering deserves to be acknowledged no matter the star power of the perpetrator. Celebrity power exposed. Throughout this trial, one theme has become crystal clear. Celebrity power is being exposed for what it often truly is, a double-edged sword. For years, Sean Combs wielded his fame like a shield and a weapon. His status gave him influence in boardrooms and nightclubs alike. It also, according to prosecutors, gave him the confidence to believe he could get away with anything. In this courtroom, that presumption of invincibility is being torn down. We are witnessing, in real time, the dismantling of a cult of personality. The gloss of stardom has been stripped away, leaving just a man who, for all his wealth and notoriety, must answer to a jury of ordinary citizens. There is a profound irony in seeing a figure once treated as royalty, now subject to the same justice system as anyone else. The trial has shown a harsh light on how Combs allegedly used his celebrity as a tool of manipulation. Consider how he leveraged his fame over Cassie. When they met, she was a 19-year-old aspiring artist. He was a superstar in his late 30s. The power imbalance was staggering. To her, he was not just a boyfriend. He was a gateway to her dreams. That superstar allure likely made it even harder for her to say no to him. How do you refuse one of the most successful men in entertainment when he says he's going to make you a star? Combs' power wasn't just in money. It was in his aura, his connections, his ability to make or break careers. This trial lays bare how that power was abused. Instead of mentoring her music, he allegedly trapped her in a world of sex and drugs. Instead of producing her albums, he produced nightmares, and he counted on his celebrity to keep her obedient. Who would believe Cassie over Diddy if she spoke out? That's what he was banking on. In the past, that calculation might have been right. But not today. Today her voice carries weight. We also saw how Combs' celebrity influence extended to intimidating others. The jury questionnaire itself reportedly included nearly 190 famous names to gauge biases, a reminder of how deep his Rolodex runs. Imagine being a victim or a witness, knowing your abuser is someone who can call up powerful friends with one hand and control narratives in the media with the other. That's terrifying. Combs knew the mayor, the rappers, the fashion moguls. He had an image of philanthropy and fun that many adored. That very image was a shield. It's likely one reason he thought paying off a security guard would work. Who would dare cross Diddy? Just pay them, and they'll stay quiet. For a long time, that logic held. But as the trial progresses, it's clear those days are over. His star power cannot suppress FBI evidence or sworn testimony. Another, the mechanisms of his celebrity power have been dragged into the light. He had publicists to spin stories, lawyers to threaten accusers, money to silence them, and a fan base that would question the accuser's credibility. All of that is now failing him in the face of cold, hard facts. The trial is revealing that no entourage, no PR campaign, no flashy smile can obscure violence and coercion when they're meticulously documented. In a way, this case is performing a social autopsy on celebrity privilege. It's dissecting how a person of influence can orchestrate a life of wrongdoing and how, conversely, that influence can evaporate under scrutiny. Celebrity power is being recast not as a get-out-of-jail-free card, but as an aggravating factor, because Combs allegedly used his influence to commit these acts and then to cover them up. Think of how he walked into court on day one. Even in custody, he managed a show for the cameras, making a heart symbol to supporters. That's the performer in him, still trying to charm. But inside the courtroom, charm won't save him. As witnesses detail his deeds, the myth of Diddy is crumbling. What's left is not the mogul in designer suits, but a man who must reckon with evidence and accountability. It is a stark exposure. The emperor has no clothes. The final protective layer, his fame, has been peeled back, leaving him as vulnerable as anyone else facing such grave accusations. This exposure is more than personal. It's symbolic. It signals to other powerful figures that celebrity will not blind justice forever. One of the prosecutors on the case is Maureen Comey, who famously helped convict Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice. The parallels are hard to ignore, the rich and powerful being held to account for sexual abuses they once thought would remain hidden. Celebrity power, once thought unassailable, is being challenged on all fronts. And thanks to this trial, we are seeing how deeply an abuse of power can run, and how decisively it can be confronted. Combs' downfall, if it comes, will stand as a cautionary tale. No amount of fame can save you when the truth comes knocking. In exposing Combs, this case is exposing a rotten part of celebrity culture itself, and perhaps, at long last, cleaning it up. The closing twist. And then came the twist no one saw coming. The man who spent his life obsessed with control has utterly lost it. After all the manipulation, after all the NDAs and hush money and fear, Sean Combs now finds himself in the one place where his power means nothing, under the authority of the court, under the mercy of a jury. It's a poetic reversal of fortune. He once controlled the careers, bodies, and silence of those around him. Now a panel of 12 strangers will control his fate. He cannot buy them off. He cannot charm them with celebrity. In this final act, the playing field is level, and that is the ultimate twist for a man like Diddy. But the closing twist isn't just the irony of Combs' predicament. It's also the unexpected impact this trial is having beyond its walls. Who would have thought that 2025 would bring the potential toppling of a titan like Diddy? For years, victims and skeptics alike might have assumed he was untouchable. Yet, here we are, watching justice catch up. The trial isn't over, and no verdict has been rendered as of yet, but already the court of public opinion is shifting. Fans who once idolized him are grappling with these revelations. Some longtime associates have quietly distanced themselves. The very foundations of his legacy, Bad Boy Records, Revolt TV, his charitable works, are now cast under a shadow. The twist is how quickly a legacy can unravel when long-suppressed truths finally erupt. One week, he's celebrating a Lifetime Achievement Award. The next, he's listening to an ex-lover describe being beaten and debased at his hands. There's also a sense that this story isn't done delivering shocks. Each day of testimony seems to bring a new headline that no one anticipated, and there may be more shoes yet to drop. Could there be additional witnesses, even more disturbing incidents to be revealed? The prosecution hinted that more employees and another female accuser will testify with further evidence of Combs' misconduct. The defense, for its part, hasn't begun to put on its full case yet. Will they try something dramatic? Will Combs himself dare to speak on the stand? It's unlikely. Most defense lawyers would advise against it. But in a trial full of surprises, nothing is certain. The very unpredictability of what comes next keeps everyone on edge. Just when you think you've heard the worst, another detail emerges. A hidden bank account used to pay off victims, a secret journal, an old friend turned foe ready to talk. It feels like a thriller with twist after twist, except tragically real. Perhaps the most profound twist is the transformation of Cassie Ventura. Think about her journey. Once a teenage ingenue plucked from obscurity by a superstar, then a quiet figure in the background of Diddy's glamorous life. And now, she's the key witness in the trial that could bring him down. In a sense, she has seized back the narrative. The control he exerted is gone. She's telling her story on her terms. Who could have predicted that the young woman often seen and not heard in paparazzi photos would one day stand up in court and potentially send a shockwave through the entire music industry? It's a twist of fate and of strength. Cassie and the others who testified took the power that was stolen from them and used it to light a fire under a long frozen pursuit of justice. Now the final twist. Prosecutors just found one last tape, and it implicates someone even bigger. One thing is clear. The era of Diddy's untouchable mystique is over. Whether he is ultimately found guilty or not, the world has heard the allegations in vivid detail, and the court of public opinion has rendered its own verdict. The closing twist is that the truth, as ugly and heart-wrenching as it is, finally had its day. Sean Combs once controlled the narrative. Now the narrative controls him. His fate lies in the hands of those he once dismissed and disempowered. It's a suspenseful climax no screenwriter could have plotted better. The high and mighty brought low by those he underestimated. And so, as the final act of this courtroom drama approaches, we're left with a mix of shock, outrage, and a strange sense of justice coming full circle. Could you have imagined this outcome even a few years ago? The music mogul who seemed invincible is now watching everything he built tremble. The closing arguments will soon be made, and then the jury will deliberate on a verdict that could echo for years to come. No matter what they decide, one truth stands unshaken. The voices that were once silenced have roared to life, and they have altered the course of a powerful man's life forever. This trial isn't just about Diddy. It's a warning shot to every predator who thought fame made them untouchable. Because right now, other victims are watching and other empires are shaking. So tell me, who's next? Drop a comment below and hit subscribe, because when the next domino falls, you'll hear it here first.